Whoa, we're here. Welcome back, everybody, to another .NET Preview Unboxed Preview 3. It's happening. Look at all these amazing, beautiful people. Oh, my goodness. I'm James Montemagno. I'm one of your hosts for today, and I'm so excited to have a wide range of amazing people from all across the .NET team. We have so many goodies in store for you today. We got new C# 14 features, CLI Awesomeness, Blazor, API stuff, all sorts of good stuff. And friends, things are happening. If people don't know, I think we got to merge this thing. Should we just like publish it now? Like,
do it.
Okay.
Do it.
As if people don't know, we just publish it. So things are trickling out, and we're just gonna squash merge and go. It is happening, and we are released. We did it.
Awesome.
We are slowly trickling out .NET 10 Preview 3 out in there into the world. If you don't know, you can always creep and get insight into what is happening, because all of this is happening on the .NET/core repo. Those were the .NET 10 Preview 3 release notes that all came in real time, and have links to all the download packages, all the NuGet packages, all the things that have just rolled out. And you can see the team in real time doing this. I believe, Kathleen, this is your favorite new process ever that
Oh yeah.
in the last, at least a year since we started doing this. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I think it's absolutely awesome. We did a little bit behind the curtain and then did it out with release notes for a while, and now just doing everything in the open. You can watch us. You can see our spelling errors. You can see us correct each other. You can do it all. We are totally open on this, and so yeah, come in a week. You'll find out we do at the last minute too. So I'll admit that.
It's true. It's good. We actually have pull requests already for Preview 4, Preview 5, Preview 6. Yeah, there's nothing in them, but they're there, so you can follow along.
Oh, yeah.
But what's really cool now is you can go into the release notes, tap on 10, go into Preview, and you're going to see Preview 1, Preview 2, Preview 3. Tap on that puppy. I love the side here, so I can say what's new in C#. What's that? Extension member stuff, null conditional assignments. I don't know what that is, but we're going to learn today. Want to see what's happening in Maui world? Boom, good to go. ASP.NET Core, look at all this stuff happening. There are so many new things happening in every release. You can go through them. And of course, there's documentation. So I love this, right? If you just want to say, okay, well, in this release, the C# team did this, but what else have they done? Just tap on those release notes and boom, you're going to get all the goodies of all the stuff coming out. And these all ship basically the same day. So you can go through all of that stuff, which is like amazing to see. So all that good stuff in there. We put out blogs, which will be rolling out during this stream on the discussions. I can just do it now. Let me just post. Boom. Just happened live. We got a release index. We're just doing it live. It's all happening live, updated. Boom. We have all the release note stuff here. I'll drop a link into the chat as well for all of these. But boom, we have all these discussions going on. You can dive into all of these on the /core repo here. And look at this. I'm gonna pin it. Pinned. Boom. Look, it's official. Put it in the news. Bam. Wow. It's happening. Amazing.
I feel like I'm seeing behind the curtain, James.
Yeah, I do a lot of button clicking. That's for sure. That's what I'm really about. Pretty much. That is my jam. We have so much in store today. I am so excited. And we're going to talk about new CLI stuff with Chet. Javier's got a whole bunch of new Blazor stuff. Now, Javier just did and the team did a whole live stream going deeper on stuff. We're going to kind of give you an overview here. Kathleen and Mads are going to go deep on the C# 14 features. And Mike, validation. I'm pretty excited. The world is like, they're like, validation. Oh my gosh. And then some new service and events. Oh my goodness. I've been going deep on SSE with MCP. And if there's not more 3-letter acronyms that we can drop in this stream, then I swear ChatGPT didn't just make all that rhyme magically happen. That's just coming from my head. So let's get into it. I'm going to hide some of these beautiful people. Boom, 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 boom. Chat. There's a whole bunch of new CLI stuff. So I want you to just go ahead and take it away. I'm going to bring up your screen if I can find it here. Where's it at? It's gone. You're going to have to reshare it.
Yeah, I'll do it again.
All right.
There we go.
Feel free to ask questions and chats along the way. I use the .NET CLI every day, and I'm excited to see all the new bits and pieces in Preview 3. So I'm bringing up your screen and take it away.
You and tons of other people use it every day. the CLI is my favorite 3-letter acronym, and so I'm really happy to be able to show you some of the new fit and finish features that we've made it into Preview 3 with. If you might remember, last summer we did a big usability survey about the CLI and the SDK sort of overall, and one resounding piece of feedback we got from all of you was, hey, we love the .NET CLI, but could it be a better CLI application? And so we're starting to do that in phases. And one of the areas that you all told us you wanted better support for was tab completions, right? You might be familiar with things like in PowerShell or other shells, you can start typing a command and then press tab to get examples of the kinds of commands that you can run. And the .NET CLI has had support for tab completion for years now, but it's been very hard to set up. And the completions that you set up were a little slow. No longer. Starting with Preview 3, there is a new command you can run called .NET completion script, and then you can put in your script name here. By default, we support bash, fish, new shell, PowerShell, and Zeesh with these completion mechanisms. And depending on the level of integration we have, you'll get different results when you run this command. So if I run this command for new shell, you'll see a very sort of limited kind of integration here. But if I run this command for, let's say, PowerShell, you get a very long, full-featured, natively integrated to PowerShell completion script. This is so much faster than things used to be. So as an example of what you get when you have this, like this is just me tab completing through all of the goodies that I get now. And this works for all of the other commands in the .NET SDK as well. So depending on the shell that you use, you'll get different features here. So if you are using Zeesh, for example, as you tab complete through these, you will get descriptions. And if I had my PowerShell configured slightly better, and if I'd done slightly more planning, you would have seen description for those option flags there too in the demo. So like I said, this is available for those 5 shells. What you will typically do with this is put this in a file like your profile, which is a file that is loaded up every time you launch a new instance of your shell. I've done that in my shell. There's some examples in the release notes of how you might do this in various shells, but it's super lightweight, super quick, and it makes the experience much nicer of using the CLI. There's even some nice usability enhancements like tab completion for NuGet package names when you use .NET package add. So I'm a real big fan of that. That's like low-key one of my favorite features. So everybody go set that up. And if you want us to do even more in this space, like maybe automatically registering those completions for you, let us know. That's just a very short sort of feature hop from where we are today. And also, if you have a preferred shell that we don't currently support, we have sort of a pluggable model here. So definitely like raise an issue and consider contributing that yourself. The next thing is that many .NET commands have this interactive flag. And this interactive flag is normally required when you are doing NuGet authentication, if you've got credential providers set up. Normally in the past, you would have had to provide this flag on every single command that might do something related to NuGet. And if you didn't, you would get a nasty error that says, hey, we tried to connect to this NuGet feed, but we couldn't. So one big change that we're doing across the CLI is we have made this flag implicitly like aware of the context in which you're running the command. So a normal .NET build or .NET publish or .NET pack will be interactive when you are at a keyboard typing commands. It will not be interactive if it's your CI/CD server, right? So we built this muscle for whether something is interactive or not, starting with the MS Build terminal logger in .NET 8. And now that we're solid with the logic, we're expanding it out to more areas of the CLI. In the future, this same interactive flag will help determine things like if we stop to prompt you when we need to make a decision, instead of just stopping the command entirely. So lots of fun stuff, hopefully building on this sort of fundamental building block in the past. And as always, you can specify _interactive false if you don't want it. So that's a couple of the CLI niceties. One little thing that's kind of interesting that I want to let you know, though, is the CLI that I've been using, the SDK that I've been using, I don't have it installed globally, you might say. I have it installed locally. So if I look at this repo that I'm in, I have a local version of the .NET CLI or the .NET SDK installed here. But if I go up a directory and I do a version, and then I go here and do a version, these are different versions. I'm using the version that we released today inside the context of my local repo. How is that happening? Because starting in preview 3, we have a new feature in global JSON that helps .NET know where to look for different versions of the SDK. So what you can do is you can try out specific versions of the SDK just inside of a particular repo without impacting your global install, while still making use of your global install if you want. It's a relatively simple feature. All you do is you add a paths element to your global JSON, and you put an ordered list of where .NET should look for SDK installations. And if you have this set up correctly, then inside your repo, you will look for the version that we specified in our global JSON, and we'll find it. If you're outside that repo, it's just like you're using your normal global installs. Internally, in the .NET org, we follow this kind of local install practice for almost all of our repos. One of the main reasons we're doing tooling level support for this now is to make it easier for IDEs like Visual Studio to also know this information without having to do horrible workarounds like setting the path or the .NET root environment variables in your terminal. So look for more docs on that coming up in the future. You will need at least a Preview 3 install to use that feature. Last thing I want to show is this project file. This is a normal console project file, and I'm going to do something wonderful. I'm going to publish it as a container. I've got Docker running on the background already, and in just a couple seconds, I should get an actual container out of this project. This is something that we've had for several versions now. People use it, people love it. The most important thing to know about Preview 3 is I did not have to set any additional properties in my project file for this container publish to work. And that's a big difference from previous versions. You used to have to set a property called enable SDK container support. That's no longer the case. Now every project that can be published as a container. So that's where I'll stop it for now because I've been talking for a bit. I hope you all enjoy these fun CLI features and join us next time for even more.
Chet, my mind is blown. Like that is like honestly probably like some of the coolest CLI features. I'm not even a terminal person myself, so my mind is blown. However, you recently made me fall in love with the publish commands where I was like, Chet, I need your help. And this is in my blog post on MCPs where I was building a container. I added those flags, which is amazing. I can get rid of a bunch of those flags in the CS proj. But literally you're just like, oh yeah, just like make it so you can build an x64 and an ARM and then just like publish it directly to Docker. And it was just like, it just did all the stuff for me magically. It was like
the multi-arch container publish is life-changing. Once you use it one place, you want to use it all the time.
It is absolutely astonishing. A lot of people loving the features. Jose says loves the feature, loves that it has all the things. I call it Zish. How do you pronounce it?
Zish, but also like there's enough pronunciations, it just makes me go sheesh.
Oh my goodness, a lot of good jobs, excellence in here. Love it.
Yeah. I see from the chat, Peter says that the container publish sounds like it dovetails into Aspire nicely. You are completely correct. Aspire publish from V1 in AZD has been built on that feature.
There you go. Awesome. Another question here from John. Are the original props accessible via CLI, like via MS Build?
Which props, I guess I would ask. Like, in general, if you want to get properties of your project from the CLI, we have flags on MS Build. You can do that now. So you can do scripts that are truly data-driven, pulling data from your projects. So
Very cool.
feel free to follow up and chat John W. with some more details. I'll be in the YouTube chat and can pick it up from there.
Awesome. Chat, this is awesome. Feel free, everyone, to leave comments and questions along the way. I'll come back and MC each of these. Chat, oh my goodness, I am honestly mind blown. Like the new completion, all that stuff, so good. Oh my goodness. People go download it. Where the bits are out, things are rolling out. P3 is coming out. Give it a try. And honestly, like I guess the cool part now is what you're saying is if people want to try just, I'm gonna get this straight. So if you want to try just preview 3 like today, tomorrow, next week, you're like, I want to try it out. Instead of just downloading the global install, you now could create that global JSON file like you showed, and then it would be contained inside of like your project folder. Is that correct? So you don't need to install a bunch of SDKs globally on your machine.
That's exactly the use case. That's what I'm most excited for. And like looking forward to the future, we're looking at easier ways of acquiring and managing the .NET CLI and the .NET SDK, and having that information in a global JSON tells us what you want. So we could potentially see global JSON being a way to ease acquisition of the tooling as well.
Wow. I love it. Oh my goodness. I can't wait to see how that continues to evolve and the goodies, because yeah, that's why one thing is I literally have a dev box set up. That's like my .NET 10 dev box. That's like, okay, I'm just going to like install random nightlies and a whole bunch of stuff to try new features. But this is cool because I can just like get self-contained. I guess you could do that with nightly. Does that work with all your nightly builds too then?
Yeah. So any version that you can specify, you can do global JSON, SDK.version, blah. You just got to have it accessible in a path somewhere, right? And you can point to it and everything will just work.
That's so cool. Awesome. Chat, thank you so much. I can't wait. I'm gonna put this, I'm gonna clip this. This is the perfect clip. I'll put it on the YouTube. So make sure you subscribe, like, share it with all your friends. Hit that subscribe button, the notification bell. You know, Chat's part of the notification squad. So he's got all the notifications on. All right, Chat, have a good one. Bye. I'll see you, buddy. Oh my goodness. I'm having too much fun. I love my job. I love the amazing team. I love this product. I love how things are evolving. It's awesome. Next up, we got Javier. How's it going, buddy? Good to see you.
Good. Hello.
Javier is back. Are you enjoying my excitement at all about this?
Yes.
I love .NET and I love C#. I just can't help it. I just love it. This is the cool stuff. Just blows my mind. But Javier, I know you got a whole bunch of cool Blazor stuff. You just did a whole live stream talking about it, and there's been so much goodness. Dan was on for preview 2, and that the video of the new features in preview 2, I think, is like 30,000 views. People super excited on it. But I know you got a bunch of new stuff, so I'm gonna bring up your screen. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna bring it up and I'm gonna let you take it away.
Awesome. So yes, in preview 3, we've been continuing this journey that we have of improving the server story and doing some also improvements to WebAssembly. So we added support on preview 3 that we showed in a previous show for declarative persistent component state. So the problem that we have is that when you run a Blazor app, for example, the Blazor Server Interactive app that I have here, so the issue is that whenever you are rendering on the server, you get all this nice pre-rendered content, and then as you start rendering interactive, whenever you need to fetch the data, you get to see this loading screen for a second, and then you get the new content back once your app becomes interactive. And that's this flickering is because the app essentially needs to restart. So we had a way in the past of solving this with an imperative model for transferring state from the server to the browser, so that you can restore the app from where you were after you were done pre-rendering and you didn't get to see this flicker. But to put it mildly, this model was kind of like cumbersome. So one of the things that we've set up in .NET 10 is to smooth out a lot of these things. So the new declarative persistence component state, what it allows us is to transform this by doing, for example, here, public, let me just rename this for forecast. Then we convert this into a property. And then we are going to assign this with a null coalescent operator. This is complaining because the visibility is different. So let's do that. And then given that you have defined a property, so it's complaining because it's missing an S. Okay. So the only thing that you now need to do is just apply this supply parameter from persistent component state. And I know the name is a mouthful. We will pick a better name. We have this process called API review that we follow to pick names. So in a future preview, it will change for something like persist or something like that, something more more intuitive. So now if I run the app, and I'm gonna put a breakpoint here again, you're gonna see essentially that this method is only going to be called, and the reason it's only called once is because we automatically save this data when we were done pre-rendering, and then we populate it back after we were done pre-rendering. What that allows you is to transfer anything that you have on your server to either like your interactive server mode or to like WebAssembly, and avoid having to like re-render and redo the work that you already did during pre-rendering. I've shown you how to do this for elements for components in your app. You can also do this with services, which I'm not going to show you right now. But there is a callback. There is a method that you can call register persistent component service, and you annotate your service with the same attribute, and we will save those properties, and they will be repopulated when the app starts in interactive mode or in interactive server. So this is one thing that I had to show you today. And the other thing that I want to show you is we've also been improving the cache busting for WebAssembly apps. So in .NET 8, we did a lot of work to do cache busting, fingerprinting, and caching, and all those things for Blazor server apps when you were running inside an ASP.NET app. But we didn't have a mechanism to do this for standalone WebAssembly apps. So these are apps that you deploy to Azure Static Web Apps, or that you deploy to GitHub Pages, where you don't really have control of the server, so you cannot set headers and things like that to make sure that caching is appropriate. So what we did in .NET 10 is change that. So we have now a property here that you can put, which is write import map to HTML. And this is also changing because we changed it recently. But if we do this, then we go to our index HTML. Then we can go here and tell it to write an import map. And the way we do that is script type equals import map. And the other thing that we can do is we can go to this Blazor WebAssembly and we can add a fingerprint expression here. So fingerprint, and this essentially tells us when we're going to read this file and we're going to replace these placeholders with the actual thing. So now when we run the app, if I did everything correctly, taking a second to think. Great. So it's here. If I now open the network tab, and I'm going to go to let me go to the application so that we can see it. Storage, let me clear the storage. Let me go to the network. I'm just going to like clear everything here and do a hard refresh. So in the network here, you can now see that if I search for WebAssembly, you can see that it has the fingerprint here applied to it. Same thing for, we used to have Blazor boot.json. Now we have boot.js, I think it's called, yes. It's also fingerprinted. If we go into the elements panel here, where is the head here? You can see here the import map with all the import maps, same as you would get on the server. And what this essentially allows you is that whenever you deploy a new version, even if your asset doesn't contain a fingerprint, even if your script doesn't contain a fingerprint, or there is some script that is not referencing the fingerprinted version of the file, it's always going to get the newest version. And you're going to avoid these situations where your clients end up with some assets that are updated and some assets that are not. Yeah, these are the two things that I had to show you today.
Well, that's so cool. So like, if people don't know what fingerprinting is, can you kind of give a quick overview of it and like why that is important, like a feature,
Yeah.
like especially in this context? Because we've talked about it a bit with .NET 8 and 9, but you know, in case people are new to the concept of why this kind of is important, why they should, you know, want to maybe turn this on.
Yeah. So in generally on the web, you are at the mercy of what the browser does. So if you generate a unique URL for each file, that's the best position that you can be in, because you know that whenever content changes, like nothing is gonna be in the cache because it's gonna be a new URL. So that's your best position to be in. If you cannot do that, then the best position is to have caching headers, but you might be deploying to a place where you don't control the server, so you cannot set caching headers, or you can be behind a proxy, and the proxy can do whatever they want to manipulate your responses. So fingerprinting essentially allows you to put a unique content-based identifier on each file, and that guarantees that when you deploy a new version, everybody gets all the files as if they were new, because nobody is able to cache them when they are different URLs.
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. So people are newer to the concept, kind of good to kind of give a nice refresher of why it's really cool. Javier, this is awesome. And if people want to deep dive, I put a link into not just what's going on in Preview 2, but right on the .NET YouTube, hit that live tab. You'll see from Tuesday, basically, a whole bunch of more different features. And I'll drop links to the documentation because there's a whole bunch more. These are just two of some of the amazing features that are in there. We have a lot more ASP.NET Core stuff as well, which is really awesome. Javier, thank you so much for showing this off.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. See ya. Cool. We have tons more in store on .NET Previews Unboxed. If you're new here, basically every month when new previews of .NET goodies come out, we're going to talk about some of the new features in that specific preview. Of course, there's a lot more as well, so you can always browse the What's New documentation. I'll drop a link for that in the chat, so you can follow along sort of the point in time in every single release. And of course, check out the sort of everything that's coming in .NET 10. There's a whole bunch of goodies in there. But I know in our first unboxing video, everyone was super jazzed, super excited for a whole bunch of new C# features. So I had to get my good friends Kathleen and Mads back for some C# goodies. I'm just going to go away because I know no one cares about me.
All right. Well, to start with, I want to just make a couple comments. So first of all, James Bragdon, I think it's absolutely true. It's been fantastic how we've gotten really close to our preview releases with all of our documentation. But right now, the extension, the stuff Matt's going to talk about is not actually in the docs what's new just yet. So I made sure it was in the release notes. So you will see samples in the release notes, but what's new is going to be a couple more days. The other thing is we've already had a comment about the fact that the extension syntax might be a little surprising to you when Matt shows it to you. And what I want to just start out saying is that we did prioritize having a fantastic experience for people that are using extension methods, because that's a lot of people writing extension methods, a little smaller crew. And so we think it's still a good syntax. We like it, but it answered some really hard challenges for us that have blocked this feature for a really long time. So with that, we got Mads here to show it to us, so I'm going to just hand it right off to him.
All right, well, if you insist. So let me try to keep the suspense up as long as possible. So in these preview releases, remember that the default language version is still the ship one. So go in and put language in preview if you want to play with the new features that we are rolling out as each of these previews come out. So,
and Matt, while you're there, if you jump back to that just for a second, these particular features don't care if you're in .NET 9 or .NET 10. So you don't have to worry about that a whole lot for the features Mads is going to show you today.
Right, that's true. Some language features depend more or less heavily on there being stuff in the runtime they can utilize. These do not. So so feel free to go ahead and play. And before we get to, there's two features we want to show today. So I'll do the other one first. The smaller one, I think it's fair to say. So you're probably, many of you are aware that, you know, we have nullable reference types. C might be null here at some class. And so we get a nice little warning that, hey, we might be dereferencing a null. And we added, long ago, we added the null conditional operator to make sure that you can dot or index into a thing conditionally on it not being null. Okay. But what about assignment? So now we get a little null warning down here that you're assigning into something that may not be there. And maybe you never realized this wasn't there. But up until now, you haven't really had a null conditional operator for it. But we're now allowing you to do the question mark dot on the left-hand side of an assignment. And what that means is the whole assignment, like the access, the assignment itself, the evaluation even of the right-hand side, only happens if C is not null. If C is null, nothing happens, not even evaluation of the right-hand side. So it's exactly the semantics you want. We also combine it seamlessly with compound assignment. So everything only happens if C is not null. We even updated, you know, event. If you want to sign up an event, the plus equals there works as well. So that's a nice little feature. Just we'll collapse a couple of lines of code into one, and it's still, I think, you know, very readable what's going on there. So you're welcome. But I'm going to delete this now because, as you see, here's something about extension members. Now, 20 years ago, in, I don't know, sometime in the fall, it'll be 20 years since the first public preview of LINQ, of Language Integrated Query, which, among other things, had extension methods in it. And extension methods are great. You know, they allow you, and I took some of those very first extension, the first class, static class with extension methods in it, enumerable, and I grabbed a few of those members to play with here today. So I have them in here in my own copy. The general trick of it, let's look at the extension method here. The first method is the one I picked. The general trick is we want to pretend that there's an instance method on this receiver type. But what it really is a static method on some other type that has the pretend receiver type, if you will, as its first argument, the first parameter marked with a special modifier. And also, we can make it generic because the static method can also can take type parameters, right? So, instance methods, pretend instance methods or extension instance methods through static methods. Great. Now, the next question we get, like roughly 7 seconds after we release, is what about extension properties? And we can't just go and do extension properties the same way of saying, okay, pretend extension instance properties implemented with static properties. Just doesn't work because static properties do not happen to already have a parameter list we can stick the receiver in, and they cannot take type parameters either. And essentially for 20 years on and off, we've been arguing back and forth about what to do about that. We essentially got ourselves into like a syntactic dead end that only allows for methods. Okay, and that is what we're going to solve in C#14, and what you get the first down payment of in this release. So essentially, instead of trying to find a way to wedge this extra information into something like a property, we're just gonna put it somewhere else. So we add this new kind of declaration called an extension block, and we just take all this stuff that's about the thing we extend and just stick it up there. And then as part of that extension block, here's the block part, like the curly braces, we have a scope where we can put extension members. So we're going to take our old extension method here and we're going to stick it in there. But now, yeah, first of all, we don't need an extra keyword here because we already have an extra keyword here. But also, we don't need it to be static because what we're doing now is, what we can do now is we we can put our extension members in here with the signature that they pretend to have as extension members, the one that they show up with as extension members. So it looks like up here that it's an instance method with 0 parameters. Well, we're declaring it as such. So this is the new syntactic paradigm. And I know you're not here to watch me just give you new syntax for extension methods, but let's just look at them for a little longer before we move on to extension properties. I'm just trying to heighten the excitement as much as I can here. So you'll notice, yes, the signature is the same as if I had declared it directly on the receiver type, so to speak. The body, though, is not like it would be in if it was a real instance method. The body instead is exactly the same as we had before, where the receiver is still a parameter. It's just declared up here, and you still reference it as a parameter. And that has some benefits instead of like changing it to you using the this keyword here instead. For instance, people use the fact that the receiver is a parameter today in their extension methods to do interesting things like pass them by ref when they're a value type, so you can mutate the original, like putting attributes on there that have meaning, for instance, about nullability, or even, speaking of nullability, some people actually have nullable receivers on their extension types. And now you can continue to express all of that exactly like you did before, and get your a little more nullable warning action going on there. So
we have a question in chat that's relevant right now. So can we put 2 type parameters on there?
You can put as many type parameters as you want. And in fact, I didn't bring that method today, but you can, the number of type parameters you put on here is up to you. You just have to use them all in the receiver type. You can have only one parameter here. That is, you can have only one receiver type, right? And they all have to be, all the type parameters you put here have to also occur in the type that you are extending. And why is that? Well, that is so that when we see something out there and we're trying to find out if we can call the extension method on it, we want to do type inference from the expression that we see. In this case, numbers here is a list of string, which is an enumerable of string, which means we can automatically infer that T source in this case is a string. And if we didn't put that restriction on, then we couldn't always infer everything about these type parameters from the receiver. So that's why.
And one more while we're here, which is, can it be static?
Can the extension method be static?
Yeah.
Yes, and we'll get there. So really good question. Let me say right now, actually, this syntactic paradigm here is supposed to enable any kind of extension member you can imagine, pretty much, as long as it's not stateful. We're not enabling all of them in one go. This version of the preview has methods and properties, and it has them both static and instance. So extension properties and extension static methods are probably, or are by far, the most requested extension members. But we'll keep adding. We hope maybe we can add operators even in this release, but also after C#14, you'll see them trickle in based on what people request more, based on, you know, the usual the design things when we are on a story arc and we decide what to put in. So let's almost get to properties. I just want to show one more thing, because one thing that was really important for this approach to design is that you can move your old extension methods into the new syntax if you like, and you don't break anyone. But one of the things you could do with the old syntax is it was a static method, right? And so if for some reason people couldn't call it as an extension method, maybe there was an ambiguity, 2 different extension methods, or later some instance method was added that would shadow the extension method, so you couldn't call it as such. Well, you could call it as a static method. So for instance, I could say my enumerable dot first, and then there would be the static method that I declared would be there. But notice here, there's still a static method, and it looks exactly like the one that we had before. Actually, it still has the type parameter. It has it has everything added back that we just yanked out. And it even has the, it's even annotated as an extension method so that an old compiler that doesn't know anything about this can still call it as an extension method. So we just add the extension method back as a static method, exactly the way it would have looked before. So it's completely compatible. And so I'm getting the first character of the first string of my list up there. That's pretty neat. What about properties? Okay, let's talk about properties. Let's make this one a property. It looks like a prime candidate for a property. What do you think it looks like? It looks like ordinary instance property declaration syntax. Just add a getter. And now the reason it's not an error is it's just calling the real library first overload there. But now I'm calling it as a property. You see, there's your first extension property. There you go. Ta-da! It just works. We can add a setter. It's a stupid place to add a setter because everything involved is immutable. But let's just pretend. Now we can assign to it. So let's assign to it. And it just works. Now that's pretty much all there is to it. And when we add operators and whatnot, it'll be the same story. The declaration syntax will look like you were declaring them in the receiver type, and the bodies will then make use of the receiver parameter when they want to refer to the receiver. Same. So now we have the syntactic paradigm lined up, and some of it is working today. Now you notice, of course, there's not a first method on the static class there. But what if I have? How do I disambiguate when it's a property, right? Same thing that you've been doing for 2 decades now with calling the method statically. How do you do that with a property? Let's see. Well, there are 2 new methods, 2 new static methods, one for each accessor, get first and set first, that we generate on the static class. So you can call them directly. Now, actually, all properties in C# have a method for every accessor on that property. We generate that completely the same name as this and everything. We just always hide it because you're not supposed to call it. But in this case, we decided not to hide them so that you have a way of disambiguating and saying, I actually, so calling the getter of the first property as a static method on the static class that contains the extensions. That is your disambiguation syntax right there. We were trying to think of like a dedicated disambiguation syntax, but honestly, everything we could come up with would be less pretty than this. I mean, it's not totally great, but it's not bad either. Like, it says what it does, right? So there you go. One last thing. Somebody asked about statics, and I am going to show you statics. So let's look at another of the classic link methods. It's the range method on system link enumerable that I copied over. It's not an extension method. It's just a method that produces a range and an enumerable of int that's a range of numbers. So that's just called as a static method and on enumerable itself, or my enumerable in this case. But it's actually like a factory method, right? It is really a factory of enumerable of ints, a static factory, no less. So it'd be kind of cool for discoverability if you could find it on the type enumerable of int and see, how can I create this? Well, looks like there's a range method on it. So let's do that one as an extension, a static extension method. So you can have multiple extension members in the same extension block, and we encourage that when the receiver type is the same. So you don't have to. But in this case, we only want enumerable of ints. So we're going to have our own a new extension block here with enumerable of int, not all the other enumerables. And we're going to put a block of all the members we want here, and there we are. And you see, this time we don't even have any squiggles and things to fix up because it's already a static method, and we want it to be a static extension method. So everything already looks right. The only thing to notice is that when you only have static members in here, you're not going to make use of the actual parameter, the receiver parameter. So you're free to omit it. You can just put a type there if you prefer. So we're going to do that. But let's look up here. There's still a static method on the static class called range. So just like before, we generate the method onto the static class as well. But of course, it doesn't take extra parameters because there's no receiver because it's static. So it's just the same method showing up as before. Again, we didn't break anyone by doing this. But we want to call it an enumerable of int. And that works. The range method now shows up. You can see in the completion list an enumerable of int. There's a range method for us that we can call. And this way you can add, you know, static new factories or whatever else you want, static members. For now, methods and properties, static methods and properties, 2 existing types, 2 hearts content. And that, my friends, is everything I wanted to show. So let's see if there's some questions.
Well, I'll tell you, if I understand James's schedule, we're running a little bit behind. And so maybe we should, there are some great questions in there about how to use some generics and some other things that are possible. I just can't wait till people play with it, because somebody said, well, I guess I'll play with it and see if I can answer my own question. And yes, you can. So I just really would love for you to play around with it. And we obviously do want your questions. And C# Lang is a great place to drop into a discussion and ask us more questions, because these are awesome. But I do think I'm going to bring James back, and he can, you know, he can catch up with us with anything. But I think you probably are a little worried about time. No?
No, I'm never worried about time. When I have a
All right,
Kathleen
then
and
you
a
can
Mads
ask
together,
questions.
my mind is legitimately blown. Like, I was like, so Mads was just like, oh, like null coalescing assignments, no big deal. I'm pretty sure that my jaw dropped not only to the floor, but to the bottom floor in our basement of how amazing it
Yeah.
was. It's always been a thing. So that's a quality of life thing. Like, I'm doing that stuff every day, right? How often am I creating extension methods? Also almost every other day. But every day I'm using all our null safety and all that stuff. And my mind is just like blown. In fact, like, I just starred a bunch of stuff. People like, it's great.
Okay.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Simple and useful. Like, astonishing. One question I'm on that, the first one before we get to extensions is, does it generate null checks for every line, or how does that work under the hood?
It generates a null check for every line, for every time you use it typically, just like the other question dot or question null conditional operators, because we often can't see if something changed the state between checks, you know, so we want to check again.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I like that. We did have the question. I think, Kathleen, you had one question from them during the chat, but I think they summarized it again on the extension members and properties.
It's normal. That's the thing about this, is that once you're at that extension, you know, the extension, it's kind of like, here's your pseudo type. Here's like, you know, we have an enumerable event, and inside of this block, you kind of got a pseudo type that you can think of it almost like, because in there, it's going to look like what you'd put in your type. And that was one of the things that was, we really struggled with the syntax. And I know there's already a question about, oh, couldn't you have done something shorter? We went through a lot of that, and they didn't feel like C#. And this gives you that opportunity to say, okay, the extension block happens to be new right now, but it looks just like a type inside. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, you could do it in a type. Pretty much you can do it. There's no state, so you can't create fields. But yeah.
I didn't, for brevity today, I didn't bring the, like an example would be the select link method. In the classic declaration of that has 2 type parameters. It has t source and t result. Yeah. And when you rewrite it with the new syntax, what you would do is you take t source and you pull it out onto the extension block alongside with the receiver, the enumerable of t source. But then the remaining method still has a type parameter on it, still has t result, and it still has more parameters in this parameter list left. Specifically the delegate that is going to map from source to result. And so you just write it as if you had written it on, if you'd been able to write it inside of enumerable of t source itself, right? Yeah. So that's how you can absolutely do those things. And we handle type inference exactly as you'd expect it, almost exactly as you'd expect it. We make sure that it is 100% compatible with the old extension methods, which in edge cases can lead to surprising results. But we where there was tension, we prioritized full compatibility over like syntactic corners.
Very cool. I'm just getting, as you're explaining it, people are super excited about it, how it's working. And we'll drop links as well to like where you can like involve and get involved with the team. People are excited about this. Now you said for the C# features, these features can be used these are compiler like Roslyn features, so you don't need .NET 10 specifically. You just need that preview flag if you're using like .NET 9 and things like that on it, which is amazing. And then a lot of good comments about the everything basically. So I guess one question here would be from Gel, for non-static extensions, if you omit the parameter name, maybe is there a way to default back to calling this on it? Or is that not needed?
We discussed all of that, and in the end, we were just saying, you have to give a parameter name, and that's the one you have to use.
Got it.
Having two ways of referring to the receiver is not like you can discuss, like if you're writing from scratch, if you never tried the old extension methods, you might think that this is more intuitive than having a receiver parameter there. But again, we strove for changing as little as possible, and then also then keeping that extra parameter functionality around that you can optionally use about how you decorate your parameter and so on, and being able to cut and paste your bodies from old extension methods.
And if you like that consistency, you like to always have the same name so you can predict it and you don't have to look for it. Then, as somebody pointed out, and you can get the very last comment if you like, James, is that you can find something like self and you can just name it like that, and you can just call it whatever you want it to call it. But we did decide that having that be only one way to do it, and we didn't think this all the time would be a good answer. So yeah.
Gotcha. Cool.
We are so excited that we have got this out the door and into your hands. So we are looking forward to the feedback.
It's so cool. Mads, Kathleen, thank you so much for showing off these new features. I'll drop links into the chat. The bits are live. It's happening. The blog post is out. You can go to .net, download links are live, so you can download Preview 3. Mads, Kathleen, thank you so much again for showing off these amazing features.
So long.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Fun. Cheers. Bye-bye. And we're back. All right, we have more goodies. The one, the only, Mike is with us yet again. Where is he at? There he is. How's it going, buddy? Did you change your shirts?
Well, yeah. The other one, the other one just had a little bit too much pattern. So I said, okay.
I love it. Oh my goodness. I feel like, Mike, I love having you back time and time again. It's been fun working. I think I've worked now closer with you in the last like 3 or 4 months than ever before. And I do want to point out that Mike dropped a few great blog posts and videos on the .NET YouTube. And we took some of the stuff that you've done in these preview unboxings, put them out as well. So we just had one with like you and Safia on the YouTube that we just put out again on the new open API features that dropped, which is very exciting. And we also dropped on the how to use .NET 10 previews in code spaces and containers. So I'm going to put that one here. I'm going to drop those in. I'm
going to show that again.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Very cool. And I'm going to give you I'm going to drop the open API stuff in here too. And you've been doing a ton of MCP support stuff as well. And I know you're going to talk about some awesome SSE stuff as well. I can't wait about it. I'm just going to go away, Mike. I'm going to let you take it away.
All right. Okay. Very good. So thanks, folks. I'm here to talk about a couple of new features that we've got coming in Preview 3 for APIs. The first one is validation. And we've added support for built-in validation for minimal APIs in Preview 3. And this is an important feature because controller-based applications had this support for a long, long time, but we didn't have the support for minimal APIs. And it's really important to have this support because one of the most useful things that you can do to add security into your applications is to validate all the inputs that you are taking in from the user. Okay. And so we're giving you that capability now to just add that in out of the box, no third-party packages or anything. Now, we couldn't just reuse the validation support that we had in controller-based apps because that used a lot of reflection. And we really want to make minimal APIs AOT friendly. So that meant we had to build, a completely new way of doing this. We also wanted to build this in a way that we could perhaps reuse it in other areas, like in Blazor or in SignalR. And we think we've done that, and hopefully you'll see some more on that soon. So what we're doing in minimal APIs is we're using source generators and a C# feature that's called interceptors. And you'll see a little bit more about that in a minute. But it essentially has all the same behavior as the validation in controller-based apps. So what the implementation does is it looks at your route handlers in your minimal API app, and it discovers all the inputs that are going into those route handlers. It also looks at the base types of those and any nested types of those, and it generates the validation logic for all of those. So, and then it will add an endpoint filter onto your endpoints so that it can run that validation logic before your endpoint handler actually gets control, so that you know that all of your inputs have been validated when you get that. So I'm going to show you a demo of this. And as I said, I'm going to be doing that in VS Code in a dev container. And that's what I'm running here. You can see .NET. If I could type, list SDKs. And I've got my .NET 10 Preview 3 here, which isn't actually installed on my base machine. Now, I'm with you, James. My jaw dropped when Chet showed how I could actually do the same thing without a dev container, but just having a special entry in my global.json. And I'm going to try that out too, because that looks really cool. But this is how I'm doing it today. And so what I'm going to show you is it's really easy to add validation into your apps. The first thing that you need to do is add this line, add validation onto your services collection. And that will add the collection of services that we need to do validations into the service container, into the DI container, so that we then are able to do all that work. And there's one more thing that you need to do as well. As I said, we're using interceptors. And so you actually have to add this line into your CS proj so that it knows that it can use those interceptors. And you don't have to worry about remembering this, because if you don't remember this, the compiler will tell you. It'll fail your build and it'll say you have to add this line. So those are the only two things that you need to do. And then once you have that, then you go and you add the validation attributes into your models, just like you would have done in controller-based apps. So here I have a customer model, and you can see that I have a name and it's required. I have an email address. It's required, and it says I need it to be an email address. I have an age. I have a range that I want that to be in. Here I have a preference, and it has to be at least 3 characters. And here I'm specifying a custom error message for it. So you can see you can add custom error messages. This is something that you could do in controller-based apps. This still works in minimal. The next thing I have is a reference code. It's using a regular expression validation. Okay, and this regular expression, I know it might be hard to see, but this basically says don't put blanks in the reference code. And then it adds a custom error message. And this is an even more advanced thing, because the 0 fill-in here, placeholder, gets the name of the property. Okay, so you can make your error messages customizable with the property. Okay, and then here I have a nested property in here, this home address, and it has validations on it. Okay, we have a regular expression down here on the zip code. This will also get picked up and run by the validation engine. So now I'm just going to show you how that all works. So I'm going to start my app, .NET Run. We'll get that going. You can close some of these windows now. And let me come over here to my requests file. And now here I have a post to create a customer. And this one is actually valid. Everything here works. So when I run it, I get a customer back. But if I say take away the email field and maybe make the age 15, and then I try to run that, Now I get a 400 back. I get a 400 back, and it tells me all the errors that are here in the request. Let me move this over a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. It says the email field is required. The age field has to be between 18 and 120. So very nice, really, really clear. Let me back out of that. Let me just show you something else here. If I take away the name field, you remember we had declared the name field is required. And if I run that, you see I get an error, but I'm actually getting an error now from system text JSON when it's trying to deserialize this field. And that's because name was declared, I shouldn't have closed that, in the customer model, in the customer class, it was declared with the required modifier on the field rather than the required attribute. And that required modifier is something that system text JSON actually validates. So when we get that error back, that comes from system text JSON. Let me just show you a couple more things here. So I think we had a preferences. Preference, what did I call it? Called it preference. So we'll just give it a 2-character preference. If I send that, see, it has to be at least 3 characters. If I give it a reference code, and I give it something with a space in it, okay? I send that. See, the reference code cannot contain spaces. This was our custom error message, but it filled in the name of the field, you see? And then let's get rid of that. And then let's just make our zip code not right. So we'll send that. So this shows you that, again, it's verifying or validating the nested fields as well. And you can see that the field name is home address.zip code. So you can sort of path into the request and you can see where that came from. Okay, so that's all of the standard stuff. Now, what happens if you need something better than that? You need something more sophisticated than that. There are a couple of things that you can do. One thing is that you can write a custom validation attribute. So let's see, I need to go to products API. So here we have a validation attribute. Now this is a contrived example, but this is basically saying whatever I put this attribute on, that value has to be an even number. Okay, it's expecting an integer, and it's expecting an even numbered integer. And the custom error message that we give here is that this must be an even number, right? So you can see that in action here when we call this. And when I call it with an even number, it works, but with an odd number, it fails with that validation. Oh, and I realize now that I missed one point, which was that the validation attributes not only work on the input request body, but they also work on parameters. So here we have a put, and it takes a product ID as a route parameter, and it says it's required and it has to be an even number. Sorry, it was customers API, and the customers API had to be greater than 0. So, right. So when I send this, it says the customer ID must be a positive integer. Okay, so it works on input parameters, on path and query and header parameters, as well as in the request body. So now back to the validation attribute. So I had the validation attribute here. No, in this one. I had the validation attribute. That's one way. And you can obviously put these validation attributes on lots of things, and you can have many of them. But the other way that you might want to do this is with an iValidatable object. So we come down here to the product, and you can make your class extend iValidatable object. And if you make it extend iValidatable object, then you can provide a custom validate method. And that validate method will take in the whole body, and it can perform a validation on that body. And when that's really important is when you have like two properties that have to be in sync with one another. So, you know, I said, well, if I'm trying to create a product and it's a Gucci product, right? But its price is less than $1,000, that's got to be a problem, right? It's got to be at least $1,000, right? And so I can show you that. This is back to where we were creating our Gucci product. I'll say it's 42, but here I'll say it was only $290. And when we run that, yeah, Gucci products have to be at least $1,000. Okay. So then one last thing to show is that you might have a situation where you don't want to do validation. Let me bring that over here. You might have an endpoint where validation doesn't make sense, or you need to do something different. And a case for that is, for example, a patch endpoint. Now, a patch endpoint might take in a request body, like here it's bringing in a request body that's a product. But you might not allow all of the values that are in the product to be patched, or you don't need to have all the values there that you would normally need for a create, right? You don't need them there for an update, right? So here I have a patch operation on my products, and I want to change the price here. I want to change the price to $2,790 because everything's going up nowadays, right? And because I don't want all the other required fields to be checked and things like that, I disable validation on this particular endpoint. And now when I do that, I can actually perform that patch. It actually works. Now I didn't actually do the logic there, but this is just to demonstrate that you can disable that validation, and that will all work. All right, that is all I wanted to show on validation. But James, do we have questions about any of this that we can maybe cover now?
Yeah, I think the question, I think you did cover it, which was around error messages, and you showed the custom one. Is that how you would do localization for the error messages all up?
I'm not sure that you could do localization there because localization would change based on what language was being requested or things like that.
True.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how we will support localization. I guess I will have to look at how we do that for controller-based apps. I don't know how that works, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I guess the way you could do it is like in the error that you're returning could have some information then that you're using some sort of string that comes back. Yeah, it's a good question because it's a server, right? So it's
right.
The server would need to know that information.
Right.
Also, you could, I guess, you could pass a requested localization string, like enus or something like that, with it as a, right. And then you could then validate and do something like that. That's a good question.
Yep, that's possible. Yep, that's possible. I mean, so that iValidatable method, I believe you can inject the HTTP context where you could possibly get that language string out of and maybe do some customization there. But I would have to investigate. I don't know the answer to that, honestly.
Cool, no worries. And then Dimitri was asking, if you're validating against like a database, I assume this is just validating like the inputs.
Yeah, this is really just for validating input. This is just looking at the input and trying to make sure that the input is good. Like I can imagine you might say, well, if somebody's trying to do a put on a product that already exists, maybe you don't want them to let them do that. that's logic that you really need to have in your endpoint rather than in the validation logic.
So standard validation that you've done on like whatever service, because it'd be hard to, nearly impossible to predict what service that you're using. So that makes sense.
Right.
Well, I think that's all we got right now, Mike. So I know you have
All
some
right.
SSD goodies.
Okay, so let me then move on to the next topic, and this one's pretty simple. This is support for SSE. So there's already an SSE type. Actually, I had that up here. There's already an SSE type that's been defined in the runtime for a while. Okay, but in the past, we didn't really have a simple way for ASP.NET applications to return a server sent event stream. Server sent events, by the way, are sort of a standard way of returning a set of events that that come over time, where the server can continue to push those events, right? And they might be notifications of things that are going on, or maybe they're just heartbeats or things like that. The way to describe those is this SSE item, and then you can have your ASP.NET Core application return some of these by using a new typed result that we've defined called SSE items. So here's an example of that. We have a get on an endpoint called SSE item, and it's going to return a typed results of server sent events, and the parameter that it sends in this typed results server sent events is actually an enumeration, an IAsync enumerable of these SSE items. Okay, and then there's a type parameter on here that indicates what the data field of that SSE event is. So let me just fire this up. Now you can't actually interact with these SSE items from a standard REST client HTTP file. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to come down here to Bash, and come on. So I'm gonna call the SSE item entry, and what you'll see here is that it just starts delivering these events. So this is what an SSE event looks like. It has an event name. It has a data field, which here is an integer, like I said before. An SSE event can also have a retry field, and there's one other field. What is the other field? Data, event ID, event type, and then the reconnection interval. So here we have 3 of those 4. Okay. Now I said that this one has data that's an integer. You can have data that's actually very complex, and that's shown in this one, where I have a JSON item, and my IAsync enumerable actually has a class as its type. And this is going to JSON serialize the contents of this class and put that into the data field. Okay. And you can see that we just create those classes here. We return a type results of server sent events. Here's our enumeration. We actually add the event type here for the heart rate. And then I can ask for that. And you can see that here we're getting the event, which is a heart rate that came from there. And then the data is this JSON serialized value from my class. So very nice thing, going to be very useful. As James said, SSE is very popular. Another project that I'm involved in that I hope to come talk to you about soon is something called MCP, Model Context Protocol. SSE is a very big part of Model Context Protocol as well. So it's important that we have this support as first-class support in ASP.NET Core. All right.
Awesome, Mike. Thank you so much for showing that off. I really appreciate it. I'm real excited. And I think if people are newer to SSE, and especially now, it's like kind of a buzzword with MCPs everywhere as well. I've been getting tons of questions about it. It's kind of awesome to see additional support here as well. And yeah, I think that we could, I mean, honestly, we should have an MCP community stand up in Chatterall. So, I feel like it's kind of wild.
It's very hot right now. It's a lot of excitement.
Yeah, and just wait. All sorts of goodies coming to Build. If you haven't registered for build.microsoft.com, check it out. You can, there's in person, there's virtual. I think I signed myself up for giving an MCP talk. So I'm excited because I just get so many questions about server sent events. I converted my MCP, my Monkey MCP, as everyone uses and is in love with, and I'm sure you have installed in your machine, Mike. Now also as an SSE version as well. And it took 10 seconds for Copilot to rewrite it, which was super cool. Mike, Thank you so much for showing this off. I really appreciate it.
Happy to do it.
Awesome. We'll check you later. Well, thanks everyone for sticking with us in this .NET preview unbox. Getting .NET 10 Preview 3. It is out. It is there. Go to .net. You can check out the .NET blog. You can get all the downloads and try out all these goodies. Check out all the documentation of what's new in .NET 10 has all been updated. All the release notes on the core repo that we've dropped into the chat as well. And we'll put links in the show notes right after this as well. Thanks everyone. And we'll be putting out videos and shorts here on the .NET YouTube channel. So if you're interested in sharing bits and pieces of this later, we'll be dropping those within the next week of some of the new features as well. And don't forget to check out the latest release of .NET Aspire 9.2. They also did a stand-up and a sort of release party this morning. So check out that video on the .NET YouTube. But that is going to do it for this .NET Previews Unbox. Until next time, I'm James. Thanks for tuning in, and we can't wait to see what you build with .NET.